Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat in the last rows. First of all, welcome all of you, and to be honest, I'm really impressed because only 30 minutes after we announced that Sam Altman will come to visit us, everything was booked until to the last seat. So, Sam, welcome here at TUM. It's an honor and a pleasure for us to have you here today. I would like to welcome all of you, the young students who want to learn how you can become the next entrepreneur, the scientific staff, professors, guests, partners from industry, friends of TUM. Great having you here. Sam, if you look at you as a person and your product, ChatGPT, I think everybody knows that both of you are not just the talk of the town. You're really the talk of the globe. And I think that make you becoming one of the breakthrough pioneers in 2023. And your product, ChatGPT, I think changed so many things. It's changed the content of our discussions that you discuss with friends and colleagues in academia or in industry or on the street or in the private environment. Usually it does not take a long time, and then it comes to the discussion about your AI. I think ChatGPT is only probably a very first step towards artificial general intelligence, and I'm sure that we will hear something about that today, so that the AI system or the AI systems become generally smarter than humans. And this, I think we all agree, will change everything in our human civilization. It will change how we run companies. It will change how we do new businesses. It will change probably the productivity of science. It may make medicine becoming more effective. And I'm sure, and this is important for us as a university, it will completely change the way how we educate, how we teach the next generation of young people. But on the other hand, we have to ascertain that humans are still sitting in the driver's seat. And that's definitely also one of the topics of today. We have to make sure that all those developments do not come for our highest prize. And this is the prize of humanity. It's the prize of self-determination. And only, I think, if we bring both together, technological advantage and technological advance, and combine that with ethical standards, which we give us also as scientists in academia as well as in industry, then I think we can really utilize the potential of this, the enormous potential of this technology, so that those technologies become indeed, so to say, a companion of humans, a supporter of us, a helper. That those systems at the very end augment our own capabilities and do not work as competitors. Therefore, Sam, welcome again here. I would like to thank in particular also the DALL-E. I would like to thank the TUM Speaker Series, because as usual, the TUM Speaker Series really managed very well to bring another top speaker today to Munich. I would like to thank our colleague, Reinhard Heckel. Thank you, in particular also for the exchange we will have in some minutes with Sam. And now I hand over to Steffi. Steffi Czerny is the Managing Director of the DALL-E, and she will give the welcome words to you as well. So enjoy.
Thank you, President Hoffmann. You're an amazing president of an amazing university with great students and a bright faculty. So, hello, my dear friends. Hello. Hello, data scientists. Who of you is a data scientist? Some. Only a few. Who of you is curious? Hello, curious people from the worlds of tech, of business, investments, politics, arts, and media. It's my great, great pleasure to welcome you all here with our very special guest, dear Sam Altman, and his friends. I probably don't need to tell you about the transformative power of artificial intelligence. But as you can see, I'm not the youngest person here in the room, maybe the oldest one. And I just want to let you know that I've seen quite a few disruption of technologies in the last 30 years. I've experienced them all because I'm curious. And sometimes it's good to have a short recap now. Remember, my dears, some of you have been in kindergarten then or even not born. The birth of the commercial internet in the early 1990s with the first internet browsers like Mosaic, Mark Andreessen's Mosaic, Netscape. Who of you remembers Netscape? Good old Netscape, swallowed by the Internet Explorer. Or who of you remember this unexpected, very unexpected speedboat called Google, which made the knowledge of our world all of a sudden available and also made search a goldmine? I've seen the rise of social media and how it transformed the way we communicate and share information. And there was the disruption of entire industries like retail, publishing, and music, and many more. And most recently, we got into so-called frontier technologies like blockchain. Who is a blockchain guy? Who is into quantum computing? The metaverse and laser fusion. Sam, laser fusion. Here are some guys. Laser fusion, Marvel fusion. In all this, AI has been on a constant and steady rise. It has become better, deeply, and this is very important, personalized and much more powerful. And now it's very, very fundamental that we've seen over the last years how it's very, very important and fundamental what we've seen in the last years with GPT and ChatGPT. Please, my dear friends, here in this audience, in this amazing audience, realize this is only the beginning. It's not in the middle, it's not in the end, it's only the beginning of a transformative revolution. Mr. Hoffman, you already said it, but I have to repeat it because it's so important. The beginning of a transformative revolution. And you, my dear friends, sitting here, looking at me, you're part of it, and you better be part of it. Everyone is asking now, what does generative AI mean for us? What does it mean for our future, for businesses, for education, for science, for our open society, for democracy, and for values, for our values? We really have to ask ourselves, are we holding the key to a prosperous and much brighter future? Much brighter future? Or have we opened Pandora's box and unleashed something uncontrollable? Question mark. Question mark. The cat is out of the bag, and that's for sure. And we won't be able to lure it back in. Who of you love cats? Therefore, I really urge you to actively shape the new reality we are facing. Now, in our days, digitalization is like electricity. We know it. But now it's a new world. So let's dive together into the unknown. Let's dare to know and make it our mission to understand and work with the complex world of generative AI. Prompt and train not only large language models. Prompt and train not only large language models, but more importantly for yourself, train the left side of your own brain, the left side of your own brain. Learn to ask intelligent questions. Train yourself to do this. This is the most important thing, and to do it. But don't forget to recognize the patterns of your personal intuition. I think intuition is something very wonderful. Just trust yourself more than ever. Just trust yourself more than ever. Please believe me, it's true. So be optimistic and very courageous in making the AI transformation of our world happen. The glass is half full, not empty. Be deeply curious and clear-eyed, but clear-eyed critical. Please, 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 take personal action. Personal action. You are the one who are the future. Sam, here you are. Here you are with your wonderful team. Thanks for your team. Working with them was an amazing experience. You are the role model in your humanistic drivenness. In your humanistic drivenness to embrace our future. I'm so very curious to learn from you. And I'm proud to co-host here this great event. It's great that you choose Munich as your stop in Germany for your world tour. It must be very exhausting. No, it isn't. Cool. Munich is the place to be when we talk about development of future AI-driven technologies and the building of new business around them. Munich is the place to be. Thank you for being here, Sam. And thank you, of course, to Pascal and Leopold. Where are you? Pascal and Leopold? And the rest of the amazing TUM speaker series. And to Reinhard Heckel, Professor Reinhard Heckel, who lured you to Munich, and to my new friend, Teresa Lopez. Teresa, from your OpenAI team, who I met at your beautiful offices in San Francisco. I really was impressed how nicely it's decorated. It is. It's not just this, it's much better. So, thank you for listening. And now I have the honor, because he became a friend meanwhile. Reinhard Heckel, Professor Reinhard Heckel, the floor is now yours.
Let's get started. Oh, Sam, can you sit in the middle?
Okay.
Yeah. All right, thanks everyone. So Sam, this morning you were in Berlin with the Bundeskanzler. So what did you talk about?
Yeah, I'm sorry for being late, but I think it was important and really good. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about how what's happening, what's gonna, like, where we think it's gonna go, what's important for Germany, the sort of whole stack of what it takes to be great at AI, how to get the right balance between all of the upsides that can come here and regulation that, you know, keeps us safe in the short and the long term and doesn't overly restrict innovation, and what the role for Germany and Europe was in all of that.
So we have a lot of students here, and the students use ChatGPT and Copilot quite a lot, right? Are you doing that? So for a lot of people starting out to code, they see that all these simple questions that we ask them can be easily answered by ChatGPT. So they might wonder, well, why do we need to code still, or do we still need to code, or learn how to code?
You want to take that?
Sure, yeah. So I'm actually an AI researcher, AI safety researcher at OpenAI. So a big part of my job is coding, and a big part of that coding has actually been kind of taken over by Copilot, which doesn't mean I let it do my work, but like as I code, it will give me suggestions, and a lot of them are great. But it definitely doesn't mean I don't need to know how to code. I should stop learning how to code. I think for a long time, tools like Copilot will enable us to do our work with more leverage and scale it up, basically do more in the same amount of time with the same amount of people. And yeah, I think that will continue to be this way, and coding is still quite important to learn.
I have two thoughts on this. One is there's a long history. We get better tools, and we just expect more from ourselves. We just do more. We don't do less. We always do more. And I think if you look all the way back from like punch cards to low-level languages to high-level languages, the fact that you can program in natural language now, the fact that the computer can help you debug better, it just means people are going to write more and better code, and we will all of us get like better quality of life. But I think there's so much latent demand for services like this that we have something that helps us do our tasks, and we just do better jobs. Also, I hope people continue to learn to code and learn to write, even if you can do it better in the tool-assisted way. I think the benefits of these things are like very deeply about learning how to think, and it'll be a big mistake if people decide to stop teaching this in schools.
So we have been seeing these systems getting better and better and on an extremely fast pace. So for example, GPT 3.5 that most people are probably using through ChatGPT gets, for example, some things wrong, but then GPT-4 gets actually most things right? So within a few months of releasing the product, we're already seeing a lot of progress. So the resources used for this progress are pre-training on a lot of data in the internet and predicting the next token and a lot of compute, right? So do you see this scaling trend of things improving to continue the next few years, or do you think we might asymptote soon?
I think there's definitely a scaling trend that will continue for some time. One issue is there's limited amount of data on the internet and on the planet, so for sure at some point we're going to hit some limits of not being able to scale up more. Similarly for compute, we can't just, like, at some point we need too much energy, too many GPUs. There's probably a bunch of low-hanging fruits that we can still pick up on the way. We can also extend to more modalities like use video, use audio. We might be able to think or like train longer on difficult problems and spend less time on predicting, for example, advertisements or children's books. But yeah, for sure, at some point we will need some kind of paradigm shift.
That sounds great. I think that's exactly right.
Okay, so Johannes mentioned this aspect of multimodality. So what we're seeing right now is GPT-4 is multimodal, so it can take images as an input. But the multimodal model doesn't perform better than the text-based model. So, but if I, as a human, I can also learn stuff from video, for example, right, and can also get better at text-based tasks. So do you see a future where these models learn from a lot of data sources, like text, audio, video?
I feel confident that's going to work. I think, yeah, I'd be very surprised if that didn't work.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So we've all seen ChatGPT say, my knowledge is cut off in 2021, right? When we ask questions.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's a little embarrassing. We're going to fix that.
You're going to fix that? Okay. So it seems very difficult to fix because the model is so expensive to train. So can you speak to that?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is you can keep training these models forever. You have to figure out how to do it in a way where it really does update. And the other is I think people make a big mistake when they think of these models as a database. If what you're using this for is like, I needed to know everything that was in the news every day, that is like it will work, sort of, but it's like the world's most expensive, slowest, least accurate database. What you really want here is, what makes this special, why it's worth spending all this money and effort, is that it's a reasoning engine. And we're training it to be a reasoning engine. We're not training it to like memorize all current data. And then we'll figure out some sort of retrieval-like approach to give it the ability to search the internet so that it can know, who won the sports game tonight or what happened yesterday. And I think that'll be a better approach. But we will try to figure out how to train continuously because that's important for other reasons.
So open source models have been getting really good in the past few years, and Germany is actually really active in that. So for example, there's a clip model from OpenAI, there's an open clip model led by a German researcher. Then there is Stable Diffusion, that's actually also by people from the Munich Center of Machine Learning. And the data set is by a German non-profit organization. So what I'm curious is, what do you think is the role of these open source models and then these closed models which are much more powerful, right? Especially GPT-4. You want to go first?
Sure. I think for sure open source models are catching up, and I think that's great. I think there's a lot of impactful work that can be done with open source models. I do think that it's dangerous to just freely release the strongest models that we've ever trained to the world and open source them. I think as those models get stronger, we need to be careful about what harm could they cause in the world, and we need to make sure we very clearly understand those harms and how to mitigate them before just giving everybody access to them. But I think in general, it's great that like the smaller models are catching up, and like a lot of useful tasks that are clearly not a huge risk to humanity can now be done by these open source models.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that we're seeing such great, vibrant open source work happening, and I think there probably will be some capability threshold where we feel differently about it, but for now this is really good. I'm curious, if we stay on the same like GPT 2 to 3 to 4 trajectory for 5 and 6, how many of you would like us to open source GPT 6 the day we finish training it? Wow. Well, we're not going to do that, but that's interesting data.
So do you see the gap of the open source to these big closed models to close somewhat or to open up more?
I think what will happen is the frontier will not be open sourced right away. And that'll give us time to figure out what we need to mitigate, what the safety issues are. But the open source lag will not be that much. And a few years later, once we know kind of what the limits are and how to make it safe, there will be very good open source models. But my sense is that lag time is probably something we are going to want more and more. We'll be happier and happier to have that over time.
Okay. So a lot of the advances in AI have been coming out of private research labs like OpenAI. A lot of the big advances. So we are at the universities. So why do you think these advances are really coming out of private research labs, not so much out of university? And what can we do better?
I think one big limitation, of course, is compute. Like, it's much harder for a university to get access to this amount of compute for example, training a model of the size of GPT-4, which doesn't mean there's nothing else to be done. Like, clearly, smaller models are catching up. We now have models that can run on one GPU that are catching up to GPT 3.5 behavior. And I'm sure there's a lot of additional work that can be done to make things more efficient and more accessible also for smaller labs or like smaller amounts of compute.
I think structures like OpenAI are good at some things. Universities are great at a lot of things. And it's generally reasonably complementary. I think there's a ton of work that's happened in universities that wouldn't have happened at somewhere like OpenAI. I think the things that OpenAI is good at, sort of the culture we have, the way we work, wouldn't quite translate to a university department. But I think that's all really great. Like, we all get to benefit.
Yeah, so we benefit from each other to some extent. Yeah. So to reach capabilities like of a model of like GPT-4, it seems you have to get a lot of things right, like the data, the training, like the engineering and all that. Can you speak a little bit to, what are you doing right at OpenAI, or what kind of decisions, what structures lead to the ability to build something like that?
I mean, we can like talk about a lot of little things that we try to get right, and we do try to get all the details right. This is, I think, something that OpenAI has a good focus on. It's not usually about the one big breakthrough idea. Sometimes those happen, but it's about doing 200 little things all really well, and everybody looking at the entire, jointly optimizing across the entire stack. So the people that work on the networking for our big cluster are talking to the people doing the ML research and the people collecting the data sets, and that's really important. But we sweat every detail. Everybody looks at trying to sort of optimize this one super hard thing we're doing. So hundreds of people work together, and they're all just trying to make the GPT-4 model be good. And then the other thing is a culture that is good at repeating innovation. And I think this is one of the harder things to build in any kind of institution, business, at the academy, whatever. But people who are focused on figuring out how we're going to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, even if it's different each time, and being relatively disciplined in sticking to our convictions. So I think it's very easy to copy. It is very, once OpenAI makes GPT-4, a lot of people are going to copy that. But the special thing about OpenAI is we will go figure out the next paradigm. And that's I think, what we're actually good at.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of attention to detail, a lot of very hard work to like get every single piece of a huge engineering feat right. We hold each other to pretty high standards and like do a lot of thorough work testing every single piece. And in the end, they basically get multiplied together. So the better every part works, or like making sure that every part works is really crucial.
Very interesting. So there's a lot of discussion about what AI, or how AI will impact jobs. And I mean, I can say it impacted my job very positively, so I'm using it in all sorts of aspects. So there's a lot of discussion on that. So it seems that there are also risks associated with essentially not adopting AI in some jobs. So what jobs do you see most affected by AI if they do not embrace AI in the next, like, let's say, 2 years?
In 2 years, I think people always overstate the amount of change that's likely to happen. There's like a lot of inertia in the system. But if we look at like 10 years, I would expect a great majority of jobs to be better off if they embrace AI than not. But again, I think this is, it's like a fool's errand to try to predict exactly how this is going to unfold. Like, one thing I would say confidently is that the rate of change in the future is going to be much faster, and people who use AI tools are going to be more productive, more effective than people who don't. But beyond that, the ways it actually rolls out, you know, if you look at the historical predictions about what AI was supposed to impact versus what it's doing right now, if you look back at what all the experts said 5 years ago, they were like horribly wrong. And we can sit up here and be horribly wrong again. It's like sort of, you know, fun to speculate, but I think you just got to embrace the rate of change and embrace the productivity gains from the tools.
So a lot of people watched the congressional hearing last week, where it was a super interesting hearing. As a European, it was interesting that everybody agreed that we should regulate AI further. However, in Europe, we have the toughest data regulation laws in the whole world already, and we also see that impacting us negatively. So, for example, BART is not even rolled out in all of Europe, right? So these regulations tend to have positive impacts, but also negative impacts. So do you think, especially in Europe or Germany, that there's also some risk of kind of over-regulation and stimulating? Yeah.
I think regulation is, I mean, as we've been calling for it, I think regulation is really good for a technology like this. I generally think it is better to wait and see what's going to happen and then regulate responsively. But there are times, and I think this is one of them, where you do want to be proactive. You still have to get it right. One of the reasons I'm doing this trip around the world, the biggest one is to just listen to people, particularly our developers, but also all the people who are being impacted by this technology, and asking what they'd like us to do, how they want this to work, what they want the limits to be, how we should decide what the values of these systems are going to be, and how we make sure that people can customize it by country, by jurisdiction, by culture, by individual. And just sort of like, it's been quite good to get out of this sort of like Bay Area echo chamber. Been to a lot of other places so far. But another part of this is to talk about the importance of regulation, and we think it's really important. We want to make sure that whatever is passed around the world is like sensible and that we're able to comply with it, but we certainly want to do that.
Yeah. So you just mentioned values. So there are different values, and there's also very different ideas on how people think what is biased, what is not biased, and it seems like something extremely difficult to balance if you just have like one system. Is there going to be a world where there's going to be different systems?
I sort of don't believe that any two people on Earth will ever agree that a system is unbiased. And I think that's good. I think that's fine, at least. I think we do have to define what the outer bounds of a system are going to be. You know, what are the things that it just won't do? And then also, if you're using it in Germany versus using it in the US, there will be different laws and some things that it can do in one place and not another. And then most of all, I think giving users a lot of control within those bounds of what they're going to, how they want the system to behave, what their value system is really important. We've done our first little thing with that with the system message in GPT-4, which I think gives people a taste of how this could work. But I think we're going to have to figure out a new democratic process to define what the bounds of the systems are, what the default is, and then how much we let users customize within that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think ultimately we will need some system where there's some, like you said, some guardrails, some framework around like what will never be allowed. This might be something like not violating the Charter of Human Rights, or something that we can generally agree on as humanity of being bad. And then probably a lot of the rest of the behavior should be decided not by us as a company or not by a few, like a small amount of people, but by some process, some democratic process. Maybe countries come together, maybe there's some like kind of governance around the world, or maybe every country will decide for themselves. Like Germany has different law for freedom of speech than the US, for example, so there might be different behavior around this in different countries. We are trying to make our models both better at following certain guardrails that should never be overwritten, not with jailbreaks, not if you ask nicely, not if you threaten it. And we're also trying to make our models better at being customizable, so without retraining one model for each person on the world, making them listen more to additional instructions of what kind of behavior the user or the developer wants, and trying to strike a balance in like resolving this hierarchy of values and like still having great behavior in the end.
Okay, so I have 1,000 more questions, but I want to give the audience a lot of time to ask them questions. So before that, just one last question. So like we have a lot of students and young people here and people from tech who are like super excited about the opportunities of AI and building careers around it, building businesses around it. Can you speak towards the opportunities that you see for them?
This is the best time in at least 15 years, and honestly probably longer than that, to be starting a career in technology. Like this 2 or 3 year period that's about to happen should just be like a Cambrian explosion of new stuff. I think. I think this is going to be the most useful, impactful, beneficial, amazing tool that humanity has yet created. I think I used to say the computer was that, and then we didn't have anything that surpassed it for a while, and I'm pretty confident this is going to surpass. So everyone is going to do super great. It's just going to be this like incredible up elevator for all of us. But man, if there is a time to like really go build something amazing at the beginning of a new platform shift, this is at least the best moment since the iPhone App Store launched, and probably back longer than that, probably since the internet.
Thank you so much. So now let's hear from the users of OpenAI. So who has a question? So we have 2 people with microphones.